Come join me in revolution. Come join me in the fight. Come join me in revolution against the dying of the light.
Welcome everybody, glad to see you here and good morning. My name is Eric Cooper. I'm an associate professor of psychology and neuroscience at Iowa State University. I'm also the vice chairman of the Libertarian Party of Iowa, and I've run 5 times for the legislature from Ames. And now I'd like to introduce Nick Welton. Nick, come up here. Nick's a system administrator at the Iowa Judicial Branch. He's a former vice chairman of the Libertarian Party of Iowa. And he's currently the webmaster of the Libertarian Party of Iowa. And we're having the press conference today to announce the fact that we intend to run as Libertarian candidates for governor and lieutenant governor of Iowa in the 2010 election. What I'd like to do during the press conference today is I'd like to discuss the libertarian philosophy and the philosophy of government, discuss the issues that we think are going to be important during the course of the campaign, and then talk a little bit about the impact we think we can have on the governor's race in the state of Iowa. Well, first, we're libertarians, and I want to explain the libertarian philosophy of government to you. The government in any society is the institution that's allowed to use force, physical violence. Now, there are certain activities that society needs to be done that require physical violence, and we need a government to perform those activities. Those activities would include protecting people from body crimes like murder and assault and rape, protecting people from property crimes like theft and vandalism and fraud and pollution. We also need a government in order to enforce the terms of contracts when there's some sort of contract dispute. And then we need a government possibly to provide some public goods. And those of you who've had Econ 101 know what public goods are. Public goods are goods and services that society needs that can't be provided by the free market for one reason or another. So examples of public goods would be patents, copyrights, lighthouses. You can't really make any money running a lighthouse. And possibly helping to subsidize education and helping to provide for the poor. But that's it. Those are the activities that require force, and that's why we need a government. Now, the libertarian philosophy revolves then around 2 key concepts. The first is that we have a limited government, that the government is limited specifically to those 4 activities that require force, and it shouldn't do anything beyond those. It may collect tax money for the purpose of performing those activities, but it's not allowed to collect 1 penny more in taxes than is required to perform its enumerated functions. That's one concept, is limited government. The second concept is the concept of a free people. What it means to be a free people is if you're an adult citizen and you aren't hurting other people and you're not harming their property, if you're honoring any contracts you've made, you should be allowed to conduct your life as you wish. And we consider the people of Iowa to be a free people. Now, these are not crazy ideas from outer space. This is exactly the philosophy that Thomas Jefferson had of what the government should do, and we consider ourselves Thomas Jefferson's intellectual heirs. And so I'm going to put on the 3-corner hat here today to symbolize that our philosophy is steeped in the 18th century Enlightenment. That's where it began. Okay? But many of you may think, well, you know, the philosophy from the 18th century can't possibly work in the modern world. Well, no, there are lots of very, very smart people who still think that this is the best philosophy of government anyone's developed. These smart people would include 5 Nobel Prize winners in economics: Hayek, Friedman, Buchanan, Smith, and Becker. We're all libertarians, and all would be in substantial agreement with all the policy positions that we're going to take today. Also, Penn and Teller, the magicians, they have a show on Showtime that highlights libertarian politics and shows how libertarianism can still work today. And then probably the most prominent libertarians in the United States right now are Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the South Park guys. If you've seen the political episodes of South Park, they always highlight libertarian politics. And if you find yourself watching South Park and feeling like, yeah, darn right, well, you've got a little bit of a libertarian in you. Okay? So I want to put on the super futuristic looking cyber shades. The super futuristic looking cyber shades are symbolic of the fact that our philosophy is not only steeped in the 18th century Enlightenment, but it is also forward-looking and entirely appropriate for the 21st century. This is the philosophy that we're advocating and what we want to highlight during the course of our governor's campaign. Now, let's talk about the issues in our campaign. On our website we discuss lots of issues, but there are three issues that we want to emphasize during the course of the campaign. The first issue we'd like to emphasize is education reform. Now, I talked earlier about these guys who are Nobel Prize winners and libertarians. The reason they are libertarians is because they like markets. They think markets are very efficient ways of organizing human activity, and the more competitive a particular market is, the more efficiently it works. In education, we have what ought to be, if the market provided it, an extremely competitive market. Lots of people could start schools because there are very low startup costs for starting a school. But the current system we have is that the government both pays for and runs the schools, turning the school system into a virtual monopoly. And a monopoly is a case that produces the worst goods and services and the worst outcomes. What we'd like to do is inject more competition into the schools. The argument for having the government help people pay for school is that schools are a public good. That is, there are benefits to the taxpayers. If we can put a little bit of money to helping people afford school, the taxpayers actually get more benefit than in the services they get back than in the taxes they pay in. Those benefits include a lower crime rate because educated people don't have to steal to protect themselves. They include better decisions at the voting booth, and they include the happiness of knowing that your kids have a chance to move up the educational ladder and move up the economic ladder as well. So if we agree that subsidizing education by the government is a good idea because it's a public good, the next question is, how should the subsidy take place? Well, the model we have now is the government both provides the service and pays for it. But let's think about the food stamps model we have for providing food. There are some people who can't afford food, but what we do for that is we give them food stamps that they can take to a privately owned grocery store and get themselves some food. Now that allows the government to help people pay for food, but it also allows all the benefits of market competition because the privately run stores have to compete on price, cleanliness, efficiency, and location in order to provide the customers what they want. In contrast, the government model that we have now is that the government both pays for and runs the schools. And that's going to be the situation that works best. What we should do is the works worst is when the government pays for the schools and runs them. What we should do if we want to subsidize education is move to the food stamps model. Where what we do is we attach a certain amount of money to the child. And the child can use that anywhere. They can use it at public schools, parochial schools, homeschooling, whatever they want. And like I said, including the public schools if you want to now. But that allows us to help pay for people's education while still getting all the benefits of market competition. So education reform is our first issue. Second issue is marijuana legalization. Our state and the other states are spending billions every year to catch, prosecute, and incarcerate marijuana-related offenses. And the question is, do we really need to be spending that much money? The Czech Republic and the Netherlands have legalized small amounts of marijuana, and have had absolutely no problems whatsoever. It's at least conceivable that there wouldn't be any problems here either. Now, I can't say for sure if there would be problems, but I think it's a good possibility. What we're going to suggest is, why not just try it? Try legalizing marijuana for 2 years with a mandatory rider on the bill that says we have to examine the policy after 2 years. If things are really, really bad, it would be the easiest thing in the world for us to revert back to our current policy. But before we keep spending all this money, shouldn't we at least look at the possibility that maybe we don't really need to have marijuana illegal? So that's our second